Okay, guys. Today I've had a lot of courageous people on this show, a lot, but I don't know if there are too many that are more courageous than the guy that I'm speaking to today. Musab Hassan Yusuf, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, brother. Thank you for having me.
Well, of course, my pleasure. I watched you. I think when your original book came out, Son of Hamas, I think it was 2010, a New York Times bestseller. I started seeing little clips of you, and then you kind of disappeared for a while, and then you resurfaced now with a vengeance. And so it's such a thrill to be talking to you. Maybe we could start, Musab, by saying to each other hello in Arabic so that people know that we are the real deal. كيف صحتك؟
بخير تشرفنا.
انا
شكرا
انا اتشرفت اكثر عن جد، كثير كثير مبسوط انه عم نحكي مع بعض. لهجتك لهجة فلسطينية لأن تشبه تبعي وأنا لبناني.
أه سؤال صعب شوي صغيرة لأنه هلا أنا عندي مشكلة أحكي فلسطيني أي إشي فلسطيني. انولدنا انولدنا أحرارا زي ما بيحكوا، بعدين هم بدهم يعطونا الهوية الفلسطينية والهوية الإقليمية وبدهم إيانا نتصرف حسب هواهم. اللهجة تبعتي من رام الله، خلينا نحكي.
Okay, so I just asked Musab, first we just did niceties, hi, how are you? And then I said, is your accent a Palestinian accent? Because, for example, we're Lebanese Jews, and there are a lot of similar accents between the Lebanese Jews and the Syrians and some Palestinians. And he said that his accent is one from Ramallah. Okay, maybe we could start, Musab. You have an incredible story, your life story. Can you give a quick 5-10 minute summary for people who don't know your work, what your trajectory in life has been?
Um, it has been a challenge since day one, and whatever truth we have, uh, how do we convey such paradox or even matrix in some situations? It's a complicated situation. I made very difficult choices. Um, you can say I'm a rebel in nature, but I'm not always in a fight, even though since October 7, you say that I came with vengeance. I did not want this. I did not want to talk about the Middle East, period, because it doesn't make sense for anyone who's outsider. But I think this is my dharma. It's my moral responsibility. It was not just enough to deflect from Hamas and draw the line that even though I was brought up in a conservative Muslim family, they believe that they are Palestinians, Arabs, nationalists, whatever it is. I made very different choices because I don't think violence can bring peace to anybody in that region. I did not believe in suicide bombing attacks, especially suicide bombing attacks, which was widely considered as a form of resistance. Even today, after October 7, people have the audacity to actually say what happened on October 7 was justified or a form of resistance. And I think this is the moral dilemma of the children of this conflict, and now a new generation, a global generation that is joining the conflict. And we want to justify our position. And many people say, I was born Palestinian means that I don't have moral responsibility towards the rest of humanity. I'm a victim. And here is my victim narrative. And they go on and on, magnifying their suffering. We understand that they are suffering. Well, the human experience is based on suffering. Now, to the fact that I was born for a Hamas leader, which, I loved my father. And many people think that I had issues with my father, but it's untrue. My relationship with my father was excellent, with my family was excellent. I loved them, they loved me. But my father's business has been a very, very bad business. And this is where I had to choose. Do I stick my head in the sand and just say I'm part of this culture, of this society, and resistance is justified? Let's just go on for eternity trying to annihilate the Jewish people, or let's say to annihilate the Israelis. What's the difference? It was nonsense and suicidal mission, especially for someone who was familiar with Hamas leadership, not only Hamas leadership, its military wing. I was in Yasser Arafat meetings. In fact, I brought the information that condemned Yasser Arafat after winning the Nobel Peace Prize. I the one who brought the information of his direct connection to suicide bombing attacks. And that was very serious, to see just the double face of what's so-called the revolutionary guards or the masters of the Palestinian cause, and how they have been deceiving everybody. They did not care for the children. In fact, they wanted the children to die. This has been their game. And this is a very sensitive issue because I witnessed so much bloodshed during the first Palestinian Intifada. And I always ask myself why. And the widespread narrative on the Palestinian streets was, because of occupation, colonialism, apartheid, the same broken record that so many people around the globe actually have been repeating. So, but how long you can lie to somebody that all our suffering, our problems, our corruption, our abuse of women, of children, of power, stealing from public money, and using children as human shields. Or during the first Intifada, Yasser Arafat was sitting in luxury, and other Palestinian leaders, and they wanted the children to confront tanks and the modern army, so they can show the world a wrong image of what's going on. So this nonsense of irresponsible and not only irresponsible, they are criminals. This entire revolution is a revolution, most corrupt revolution, led by the most dangerous con artists of all time, who have been actually trying to globalize the chaos and the violence. And so basically, this background did not mean that I would submit to the religion, to the belief system, to the political system. And I followed my moral compass, but I had to disconnect from that world. I mean, you cannot be just one leg in and one leg out to say, the Palestinian cause, but reject violence. Somehow it depends on violence. It's a violent cause. It has been like this. Even those who tried to make peace, it was a tactical thing for the Palestinian Authority after the first Intifada, that they weren't sincere actually in their peace approach. To them, it was tactical to just return, then continue from there. I don't like hypocrisy, and I don't like when people lie, especially if it is going to lead to enslaving generation after generation after generation. For how long? And for the sake of what? So I lost my faith in what's so-called revolution, because what I came to realize from early age, that the revolution was only for the sake of revolution. It was not a revolution with a moral, ethical, fundamental compass that the revolution knew where they are heading. So basically, I can go on and on for hours. What actually made me make the change and reject the environment of my early life conditioning?
But was it, I mean, was there a catalyst? You witnessed episode XYZ that really flipped you and, made you realize things? Or was it a gradual thing where at 5 or 6 years old, I tell, for example, the story of how when we grew up in Lebanon and, we'd go to the synagogue on Saturday morning and I would ask my father, why are we now standing? Why are we chanting this? Why are we doing this? And then he would answer, just shut up and don't ask questions. And that to me, even as a 5, 6 year old intellectually inquisitive boy, didn't sit well with me. What do you mean I just get up and sit? I don't just follow. Explain to me. And so already there, I started having doubts about, the organized rigidity of religion. So in your case, is it something that you could say, I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old already having doubts, or it's only when you became heavily involved at a later age as the son of the co-founder of Hamas that these things came to be clear to you?
Look, of course, I did not have the realizations that I have today. Somehow I knew them deep in my consciousness. But it's an evolution. And people want to reduce my life experience with all the adventures in it, in the public world and in the secret world of terrorist organization and the most powerful intelligence service out there. They want to just reduce me to a victim, somebody who's got like issues with his father, or someone who's got issues with Hamas. They don't understand that this is a sole purpose, and there lies their false narrative, false accusations, all attempts to discredit my life journey will go in vain. And hence I stand firm in my truth, because what I witnessed since childhood led me to this point. When we talk about society that justify honor killing, how can we blame this on Israel or on the United States, on the colonizers? This is a failing attempt to export all our problems, including social problems and cultural problems, on some hypothetical entity that we did not know about. So, in principle, this I did not like. I did not like to see a father hitting his daughter in the city square with a metal pipe on her head again and again and again until she died, while the public were watching and nobody did something about it. No one tried to stop him. Why? Because he's the father. He has the authority to kill the woman, because the woman is a property in that society. Now, this is not only one event in childhood, it's happening all the time. And in fact, there is no punishment for the honor killing. So a father can kill his daughter, or a brother can kill his sister. Then after that, there is no punishment. They just give the gun to the Palestinian Authority police station, and they don't spend even one night in prison. So now when we are dealing with such brutality, where the rape victims being punished equally as the rapist, and that's protected by the belief system. This is protected by the culture. It's the agreeable. Then the cousin violence. Then the factional violence. Rival parties, each one of them belong to a foreign entity. They have different masters and they have extreme political views, irreconcilable in some cases, like in Fatah and Hamas. And they are all claiming that they are fighting for Palestine. I said, no. Well, what I see, what my first-hand observation, you are burning our people to death. You don't care for the children. You want people to die, and all you care about, money and power. This has been their game. So the things went really south when I was in Megiddo prison. I spent there about 16 months. And this is where I witnessed Hamas uh, brutality firsthand. Uh, my father told me we have to emancipate, or let's say end the occupation. And his version of end the occupation meant the ethnic cleansing of the Jewish people, then establishing an Islamic state, not a Palestinian state. This is a very important point that people need to understand, that most of the Palestinian factions, they are not even national organizations. They are foreigners, or at least they are serving foreign entities. So now, when you want to go on such a suicidal mission, you want to uproot a superpower, and then you want to establish an Islamic state on the rubble of that power. What does this really mean? It means annihilation of everybody and could be a global war. So how could this be? How could any rational mind accept such an absurd agenda? I
Right.
don't want to say it's criminal only, but it's if there is a definition of madness, this is what madness is all about.
And what animates this, and I mean, I think you'll agree with me, but I'd really like to hear your perspective. So, growing up in Lebanon as a Jewish person, even in tolerant, progressive, modern Lebanon, Jew hatred was a banal part of the DNA of society, right? People throw it at you like it's nothing. It rained today, goddamn Jew. I got diabetes, goddamn Jew. My wife cheated on me. It's the Jew who put the. So I presume that you growing up within the Palestinian territories, you were exposed very early to Jew hatred. And let's make it clear. It's Jew hatred, not Zionist hatred, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all of the attempts today to come and say, "Oh, yeah, we are not anti-Jewish people, but we are anti-Israel," which, which, in my opinion, is even worse to say that, because this manipulation and using juggling with words to hide the ill motive, that we know that the Arabs and the Muslims have fundamental issue with the Jewish people. And this conflict in the Middle East is not a political conflict, and it's not a conflict about
La-
territory
About land, yeah, exactly.
or about land. This is why many people want the artificial reasons. They don't have the courage to dig deeper, that we have hundreds of millions of Muslims around the world that have been weaponizing their religious identity against a religious minority in that region, and they want it to cease to exist. It's not only Israel. What about me? What we did in the second Intifada, risking my life on a regular basis, trying to stop Hamas from blowing up and buses, markets, universities, killing people indiscriminately in an era where Arabs, Jews, Christians, or even Muslims were killed during Hamas suicide bombing attacks. So to take a stand against this brutality, and I was never against the revolution or against resistance or against my people. We saved Arab life and Jewish life. There was no difference. So why to be sentenced to death for taking a moral stand to say no to shedding blood, no to killing people indiscriminately? Where do we draw the line of what's so-called resistance? To become barbaric by the name of resistance, then discriminate against peaceful people. My major at university was history, and I allowed myself to study forbidden books about the Holocaust, for example, which the vast majority of the Arab world are not educated when it comes to the Holocaust, because they deny it.
Right.
Even in the most respectful educational institutions in the Arab world, they reject the Holocaust. And now we see actually October 7 was just almost a moment ago, and we see the amount of denial that it did not even happen. So the denial of the Holocaust, and on the contrast, me studying and reading about the Holocaust, it was a heartbreaking experience. The rise of Nazism also was fascinating. I don't want to say fascinating, but a dangerous phenomena. How fast, within 5 years, how the Nazis were able to convert and misguide the herd towards unjustified Jewish hatred, which eventually led to the death of millions of people. So there has to be a line, like where do we draw the line? I understand the frustration of people when we are going through war, the chaos of war. This is understandable, but we cannot hate others because they are non-Muslims. We cannot hate others because they are different. We cannot go on inciting and shaping generations and feed them on hatred towards other religions. And this is what eventually led me to study other religions, and I start my criticism of Islam and Allah. So there are so many things. There is what actually the foundations of my truth, where I stand today. Some of it is political, some of it is personal, some of it is ideological, and some of it is moral and fundamental principles.
Do you think so? Some of the people that I've talked to through the years put on an optimistic lens when it comes to Islam, and they say if they're honest enough to admit, yes, Islam contains a lot of content that is completely incongruent with our values here, let's say in Western secular societies, but they will then add, just like other religions were able to reform, certainly Islam can be reformable. Now, I've often argued that actually that is an impossibility, because if Islam is the final inerrant word of God, by definition, it could not be changed, right? ما في حرف اللي لازم تغيره, right? There's not a single letter, a single syllable that should be changed. So you really are at an impasse where, from a doctrinal perspective, you cannot reform Islam. So having said that, so my first question will be, can you reform Islam? And then my second question is, can Islam coexist peacefully within a Western context?
Look, in order to reform Islam, we need someone with a higher authority than Allah itself. As long as this individual, under the umbrella of Islam or the constitution of Islam, they don't have authority to change the Quran. They may have the authority to have their own interpretation and put some nice twist to it, sugarcoat it, and try to make it, fit in the 21st century. But can we do this with every Islamic law? Can we do this with every verse in the Quran? I cannot think of anybody who has that authority. And all the Islamic religious centers or educational institutions, they don't have that authority. They are all under the burden of a book that was not even written during the days of Muhammad. It was written way after his death. Muhammad himself claimed that he was illiterate, meaning he did not write it, or when it was scripted, he did not have the tool to verify what others wrote on his behalf. Then it was collected some 150 years later. Some accounts say 400 years. So how can I consider this book legitimate? Then the Islamic Sharia, the Islamic law itself, it it cannot meet with the demand and the modern day problems for humanity. If I want to go around and start butchering people, cutting their hands, cutting their arms, cutting their legs, because of felonies or because of crimes they are committed, stoning people in the city centers, killing rapists and rape victims in the same place. Then what about jihad? This is one of the biggest problems. Most religions are delusional and they need to be actually integrated. They have the essence, and intelligent people see the essence of the way. So, and they can integrate it into a higher consciousness. That's possible. The Sufis were able actually to see Islam beyond politics and beyond man made laws. Because if you are spiritual in your essence, if you are sincere and devotional, you will arrive at the truth eventually, because with humility and devotion, truthfulness, discipline, fasting, praying, uh, this is not a political thing. But who those actually need the politics, or they need the religious mask? Those are the ones who are insecure. Those are the ones who just sheep. They don't have authority over their own lives, and they cannot escape the cave of religion. It's their security, it's their identity, it's everything they know. So, hence, they want now to convert everybody, the rest of the universe, to be like them, rather than trying to integrate to a higher consciousness. So there are so many fundamental problems about Islam. Jihad is the most dangerous aspect of Islam that is not available in other religions. Not only to be delusional in your belief, because Muslims say that they are believers. And I say, well, believing is not enough. It's either you know or you don't know. Don't tell me you believe or you disbelieve. So the fact that they say that they are believers of Allah as entity that sits on a throne at the corner of the universe, that who has been preparing a hellfire for all the infidels and the majority of humanity who are non-Muslims, sounds absurd.
So how
And
do you, someone who had your personal trajectory in life, who's coming with all the, you have all of the credentials and right imprimatur to say, I know what I'm talking about. I don't need some, undergraduate at Columbia University who can't tell what Islam is or what Palestine is to be lecturing me. And yet we're seeing millions of Westerners fall completely under the sway of this romantic idea of, Islam is the language, is the religion of the noble brown person. Palestine is the land of the oppressed. So there's kind of a romantic view that is in part shaped by this astronomical ignorance about the realities that you can certainly speak to. How do we get to the Westerners to appreciate some of the things that you're talking about? Is there a way, or is it completely hopeless, Musab?
well, it takes manifestation to understand a certain theory. For those who studied history, especially the Islamic history, it is not it's not a secret what was the outcome of an Islamic khilafah and how many khilafahs the Muslims tried to actually establish.
Can
There
you
are
explain what it is for those who don't know what that is?
well, khilafah means literally an Islamic state, but this Islamic state is not limited to a political border. It's not limited to geography. It's a global state that it's the duty of all jihadists, of all Muslims, to fight, okay, to fight, to practice jihad and I say this is an Islamic obligation, according all Islamic resources, that jihad is the most fundamental principle of Islam, and all Muslims are committed to jihad. Now, those who cannot fight by the means of the sword, like they are not capable physically or mentally, they have to donate and they have to fund those who are able to fight. And this shows you why the vast majority of the Muslim world are complicit in jihad and jihadism to the degree they have failed to condemn Hamas up to now. Why? Because they know deep in their belief that Hamas is practicing Islam. Now, the fancy idea of let's try to destroy or annihilate civilizations in the West and in the East. Islam is not only against Christians or Jews. Islam is against all non-Muslims. And that includes Hindus, that includes Buddhists, and we have a long history of Islamic violence against all other religious religions around the world. Now, for people, it's fancy because they haven't experienced the manifestation of an Islamic State, or they lack knowledge. They are not familiar with the Islamic history. That I don't want to say millions, but at least hundreds of thousands of Muslims actually killed each other in the internal Islamic conflict between Islamic Khilafats. So I don't want to go too far with this. The Islamic State, throughout the centuries, 1400 years of experience, proved to be a dead end, proved to be a failing model that did not work. So today, as a historian, as a person who is not willing to compromise my intelligence, I know that the Islamic Khilafah will not lead to prosperity, to peace, to stability, to justice. And it is going only to ignite the bloodlust for more dominion, for more aggression, where the Muslim jihadists can take women, children as booty. They can enslave humanity in case they don't convert to Islam. So my intelligence does not allow me to accept such a belief system. And many people tried so hard to differentiate, say, no, there are good Muslims and there are bad Muslims. You know, this game of good cop versus bad cop. But they are both, or both parties are serving the same God. They are serving the same constitution. Hence, we have to address Islam the way it is. And the more we tolerate such an aggressive and violent mindset, more violence will happen. And I don't want this young enthusiasts who think that establishing an Islamic State or a Palestinian state on the rubble of Israel, or an Islamic State on the rubble of civilization, what's in common between these two entities, Palestine and the Islamic State? That both of them depend on the destruction of that which exists.
So then how do you, so if you were, let's say, Mossab, you were the leader of the free world, you were the emperor of reason, would you halt immigration from Islamic countries, knowing that, notwithstanding the fact that there are millions of peaceful, loving Muslims that don't want to hurt anybody, Islam itself is problematic in terms of it being able to assimilate within a Western context, and therefore how could you allow millions of people to come into your country that have 99% of them Jew hatred? You're going to get an increase in Jew hatred. I live in Montreal. 20 years ago, I never had to worry about Islam. Today, I have to be very careful not to wear a Star of David that's too big in Montreal, Canada. So, is the ultimate goal going to be Islam cannot coexist within the West? Or is there a way, to my earlier question, of making it somehow more gentle? Or are we doomed? What give us some optimism.
Okay. The take for example Americans from Muslim background. When they vow loyalty to the American Constitution, this supposed before they get their citizenship as immigrants, they make a vow to the American Constitution and loyalty, national loyalty to the United States. This is the supreme authority of all Americans. But are Muslims sincere when they pledge loyalty to the American Constitution? Are they sincere? Because this contradicts with Islamic law. The Sharia law does not see any higher authority than Allah, whether if it's earthly or heavenly. Allah is, don't they say Allahu Akbar means Allah is greater?
The greatest, yeah.
It's not the greatest, is greater, but greater than who?
Then what? Yeah.
Than everything else.
Yeah.
Than the other gods, and then man, than creation. They totally separate divinity from creation. And I think this is a fundamental problem in Islam that does not see actually the creator and creation as one thing. So anyway, we need the Muslims who immigrate to the West to make their loyalty to the country that welcomes them and give them citizenship, not loyalty to a hypothetical entity called whatever you want to call it. Now, people have the freedom to practice Islam if they want. At some point, I was practicing Islam more than anyone else. My mother used to say, "You were born in a mosque," you know, when she wanted to give me a hard time when I asked questions. And it's true. You know, Islam was our project. My family brought Islam back to life. So this is where I get my authority to criticize Islam. Also, as someone who went to a Sharia school, someone who studied the Quran, someone who's familiar with the Islamic intellect and the different Islamic schools, their dialogue and their argument. So you cannot be American and Muslim at the same time. You have to choose. If you want to be, if you make your pledge and your loyalty to the American Constitution, you are contradicting with Allah. Then you have a moral crisis. But there is a concept in Islam called taqiyya. And in taqiyya, you can announce something, like if you were in Dar al-Kufr, which is, let's say, the country of infidels. In the country of infidels, if you were forced to choose, let's say, a fake identity, let's say American, this is a fake identity, but your true identity is Islam. So you can hide your true identity to avoid persecution and pretend to be American in the meantime. But when we have chaos, like the chaos we experience in right now regarding Palestine, all of a sudden, the loyalty is not to the American Constitution. It becomes the loyalty to Islam and to Allah.
Wow. Are you able to, I mean, when you make your public pronouncements, is there a greater success rate in trying to convince the Westerners who have romanticized these ideas? Or are you able to take some of the doubting Muslims and get them to finally see the light? Is there a difference in your ability to actually persuade either of these two groups?
Look, I have been in this, I don't know, say a mission because I don't have a mission, but journey, trying to explain to people the danger of Islam, and it looks like many people are in denial
Yeah.
because they don't want to accept that there are 200 or there are 2 billion, close to 2 billion Muslims.
About 1/4 of humanity.
A quarter population of Earth believe in a sick religion. And I am not going to sugarcoat it. My personal, I don't, it's not an opinion, but my personal experience with Islam and its evolution. Islam is a mental illness, and Muslims are mentally ill. I cannot trust them with anything because they are double-faced, because they are conflicted about their religious identity, and all they know how to demonstrate is violence and aggression whenever they are threatened in their comfort, in the cave of their delusion. So it's my moral stand. It's very different than yours. You don't have to go there and confronting. You can hold the dialogue. But I personally don't sit with people who want me to cease to exist. When they push me to the corner where I'm fighting for my life, for a crime that I haven't committed, then they have crossed all the lines and there is no dialogue between me and such people. And I will fight. First, I will fight the good fight. And I will do whatever it takes to defend myself. It doesn't matter if they are 2 billion or 8 billion. It doesn't matter. So to see it in a positive way, I think the upper hand should be to a civil constitution. And first, we need to demonstrate this here in the United States, like the Muslims. What is your loyalty? Is it to Allah or to the American Constitution? Because Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, all other religions, including Jews in the United States, all American citizens are under the authority of the American Constitution. No one is above the law. Isn't this the rule of the law, that no one is above the law? But for some reason, Muslims think that they are above the American Constitution. So I ask myself, why are you in this country to begin with? What motivated you to come to this country? Is it capitalism? Then suddenly now you are changing colors and you want to turn your back on the country that took you in, especially in a wartime, demonstrating and I would say persecuting religious minorities like the Jewish people. So what I would like to see, whether if it's Arab country, Asian country, all Muslim countries, that they can begin with a civil constitution and not allow religious authorities have an absolute control of people's choices. So if we can do the first step of bringing a civil constitution, then I think people themselves will drop many of the religious beliefs.
Inshallah. Do you still have ties with any of your family members, or are you utterly estranged from anybody from your past?
The relationship is over a long time ago.
With
And
everyone. There is no sibling, no cousin, no one has written to you
with
secretly.
everyone. It's from the beginning, you know, a couple of my siblings wanted to stay in touch, but I refused. And they said, you know, we love you regardless, but I refused because their life could be in danger if they stay in touch with me. And also, I did not want to complicate it to the family. My family got really hurt because of the choices that I made. They are still hurting. And this is actually the highest price that was paid. I did not pay the highest price. It's my mother who paid the highest price because she cannot understand the choices that I made. But this is where I really had to choose between my comfort, between my security, and bring the truth of the inner work of what's so-called Palestinian revolution and the origins of this complicated issue. It's not coincidental that I'm here. And as you said, I disappeared. I thought I just did my part, and I thought I moved on. And in the fact that I did not come back with vengeance, the reason for my outrage that I went into silence for a very long time, I did not even talk to anybody, Palestine, to nobody. Like, I did not need, that's it. I got shunned by my family. I moved on. And I took responsibility for the decisions that I made in my life. But then, when October 7th happened, I just could not help it. I could not help it. It brought me back in the worst possible way, because this has been my warning from day one. Not only to my father, not only to other Hamas leaders, also to Israel and to the Israeli intelligence service, to the Americans, that Hamas was danger. But in 17 years, we did not do what it was necessary to prevent Hamas from reaching this far, because we had to compromise.
Wow. I mean, I'm often asked by people, how can I have the courage to speak out? I mean, never mind about Palestine or Islam. It could be about, can can biological males compete in female sports? And they're too afraid to say that, no, that's crazy. How could you allow the sexes to mix? And the excuse I always get is, you don't understand, Professor Saad. I will lose my job. I won't get my promotion. I won't get a good grade on the exam. So there's always an excuse, while it's not for you to be courageous and speak out. And here I have in front of me you, who, I mean, never mind today, you're still taking risks, right? There are people who might want to hurt you today, but you were working within that world, the most dangerous possible world, helping the other camp, the Yahud, the bad guys, the evil ones, the shaitan. And so it contextualizes the kinds of risks that people think that they're taking when they compare it to the risks you had to take. So that's point one. I'll cede the floor to you in a sec. Number two, one of the things that I talk about in my most recent book, the book on happiness, by the way, is that for you to be happy, you have to live an authentic life. And what you've done basically is exactly that, because you've said, I'm willing to give up all of the love and support of my entire family, because to not do so would be inauthentic according to my moral compass. So that's remarkable. If you want to add anything to that, go ahead.
Yes. Well, listen, most of us live in darkness, and we create convenience out of our narrative, our belief system, because we're afraid to die. We are afraid of death. And we are afraid of others. We're afraid to be judged. We're afraid somebody is going to come and harm us. Hence, we don't take risk. We don't challenge our own belief. And when someone comes to get us out of, challenge anything that can get us out of our comfort, the pattern that we repeat on regular basis, then we think we have mastered life just because we know how to repeat a pattern. Well, I also can train my dog, to repeat a pattern on regular basis, and they would be doing an excellent job. Individuals of higher intelligence, we don't accept beliefs. As I told you, it's either we know or we don't know. Now, to be intimidated and swayed by the opinion of the majority, and this is especially what's happening right now. This is not the first time I'm in the face of a majority of people who live in denial. And I am not the first individual to say no to the system, no to the establishment, and no to a sick belief system. Many others tried this before, and swimming against the current could be destructive. But when I say we, the handful of people who chose to go against the flow or the current of a society, we take the risk, and death is part of it. I personally make my peace with death on a regular basis. In fact, death is not a threat at all. Death is a friend. And as long as we are afraid of death, then we are trying to get along. We're trying to please everybody. We're trying to please the parents, then we are trying to please the teacher, the guru, the politician, the neighbor, our children, and all the irrelevant people to our lives. We try just so hard maintaining a certain public image. What happens in the process that we lose our freedom and we lose our individuality and we just become what others want us to be. I don't accept this for myself. And yes, it's part of the confusion. You know, people are confused about their sexuality, about their sexual identity, and we come with all type of cunning methods to justify the imprisonment of the mind. I don't believe mind is a real thing. I don't believe consciousness is a real thing, and we're just passing through life. Hence, it's not our right to take our generation, then steal the dream of next generations, especially steal the dream of children by deciding for them what to be. That children were born innocent. They were not born Palestinians. They were not born anything. And it's our responsibility to protect them in every possible way, not instead of gambling with their blood, instead of gambling with their future, using them as human shields and call that resistance. This is where it gets tricky. And this requires not only the wrath of man or the anger of me or a handful of people out there, that we are outraged for the use of children as human shields by Hamas, for sacrificing Jewish and Arab children for the sake of Allah and for the sake of Islamic State. Hence, we have to fight this evil, and we have to fight united. Now, if we get hurt in the process, if we get killed in the process, this is not the final destination. Everybody is going to die. And you think those who are playing it safe, the mediocres, trying to please everybody, living the life of slavery, do you think any of them is safe or any of them can hide from death?
Wow, you are an extraordinary man. I mean, there are two guys, I think, on this show that stand out with their courage. The first one you may know is the guy who was known as Ain al-Mosul. Do you know him, Mossab? Ain al-Mosul is a guy who was documenting the horrors that Daesh, ISIS, was doing in Mosul while ISIS was trying to find where he was. And he was doing it from within Mosul. He then left, he immigrated to France, and we had a chat. And I think you certainly fit within that level of unimaginable courage. Thank you so much. But before I let you go, ما بنشبع منك حبيبي، فيني احكيك بعد 10 ساعات. Are there any projects you're working on now, any books that you're writing that you'd like to use this opportunity to promote?
In principle, I try not to promote any books. Maybe you can see this clearly on my social media. I try not to mix my personal interest with this bloody situation. Yes, I have a book out there, and there is a book coming out. But I do this projects for fun. I wrote a book about the life of Muhammad, and this is one of my biggest projects. I spent the last 10 years actually writing it.
Wow.
It's a very positive narrative of the life of Muhammad. I don't know how this is going to fit in this global chaos. It was supposed to be published within weeks, but I put it on hold just for the sake of the situation. The creative process continues, but whether if I am here today or tomorrow or all of a sudden I vanish, and that's possible because I'm not dependent on this conflict for survival. I have a magnificent life somewhere, surrounded by people I love very much. and they have nothing to do with this conflict. It's very strange for them, when I tell them stories about human madness in the Middle East. So for me, this is just a temporary situation. I had to come back for this human tragedy. And what I am hoping that we will remove Hamas from power. And I will not rest. In fact, I will not rest until this goal is accomplished. Whether we go into Rafah or we don't go into Rafah, Hamas is over. This has been written in a different plane. It's not up to any earthly authority, I promise you that. Sounds absurd, but I promise you that there is going to be a time. You will look back at this conversation and you know that I promise you that Hamas is over. Hamas is finished. Once Hamas is removed from power, people need to drop their false identities. I don't mind if they want to call themselves Palestinians, Arabs, Egyptians, whatever they are, Muslims. It's their right to identify with the devil of choice. That's not my problem. But if they try to weaponize their religion against religious minorities, risking the lives of children, this is something that I am not going to tolerate. All the freedom fighters around the world will not tolerate, regardless of a majority of sheep being led to the slaughterhouse. Now, Palestine is a trendy thing, and many people want to be part of the revolution. And I said this earlier, that a revolution for the sake of revolution only is not welcomed in the United States. Parents who send their children to campuses, they have the right to know who is behind the mask, because it could be an activist, it could be a sympathizer with Gaza and the tragedy there, but also can be Satan. And I don't like to see masked people on campuses interrupting the educational process, because this is exactly what Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood did during the first Palestinian Intifada. They targeted schools, campuses, then immediately after, they targeted economy and public transportation. So I don't want to see actually an intifada in the United States. In the United States, it's the way of dialogue. We have elections, we have democracy, we debate. Some of us win, some of us lose. Those who lose accept defeat. This is a very different mentality than the Middle East, who turn their defeat into massacres and genocides and ethnic cleansing. So this victim narrative that is now wide spread in the United States and in the West could be a bestseller narrative, but in reality is not a true story. So with that said, Palestinians can be whatever they want to be, as long as they drop their mad idea to annihilate Israel, as long as they drop violence as a mean of achieving political agendas. So if they want to practice Islam, I see them praying on the sidewalk. I see also dog walking around the street, and it's about the same for me.
Oh boy, here comes the death threat. Here come the death threats. مصاب عن جد ما بينشبع منك. انت بطل، يعني مش معقول. بطل in Arabic means like a champion, a strong guy. It's an honor to meet you. Please stay on the line so we could say goodbye offline. Come back anytime you want. Stay safe. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you soon in person. It'll be a pleasure to share a meal with you. Thank you, Habibi.
You're welcome.